Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHD, and welcome to this race preview for today's 2021 Italian Grand Prix at, of course, the Temple of Speed, Monza. And this Grand Prix, with the grid we have, as you can see on the left-hand side already, what the grid at the moment, the starting grid will be for the Italian Grand Prix today. We're in for a very interesting Grand Prix. And of course, that grid was decided by the sprint, as F1 like to call it. And yeah, I think, forgetting how we got there, the grid, it looks definitely exciting. Great to see, by the way, Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo on the front row with each other. Didn't think that would probably happen at all this season, to be honest, even in a surprising situation, given how Ricciardo has been this season. But this weekend, Daniel Ricciardo has been very, very good. But when you look down that field, very mixed up grid. The reason really it's a mixed up grid is because at the start of the sprint race yesterday, there was a couple little accidents and moments, and that's what caused it. Just to let you guys know though, I have not seen the sprint race. I did not watch it live. I was busy doing something else. And I have no plans to watch the highlights either, because from what I heard, except for the first lap, nothing really happened. So, yeah, not surprised that the sprint idea yet again fails to deliver the excitement that it's supposed to. And good to see that a lot of people after the sprint race were coming out and saying that, it's a bad idea. But Sergio Perez basically destroyed the idea, saying that it's boring for everyone and, just terrible, which it absolutely is. And I think even some team principals now are starting to question the sprint idea, which is good to see because it needs to be gotten rid of. Qualifying, in its normal format is way better than a sprint race. It just is. It's way more exciting than a sprint race. There is no debate, I think, to be had about that. And if you can't have a good and exciting sprint race around Monza, I don't think you can really have an exciting sprint race at all, because Monza, there's plenty of places to overtake. DRS straight, the pit straight, of course, and then the second straight after the first chicane, the second DRS straight heading towards the Ascari chicane, and then the straight in between the exit of the Ascari chicane and Parabolica. Like I said, plenty of places to overtake, and wasn't that exciting from what I heard. So, yeah, not a surprise. And hopefully we never see it again. But I have a feeling that we will see it at least once more this season. Probably at the Sao Paulo Grand Prix at Interlagos, another circuit with plenty of straights. But it'll probably fail around there as well. But hopefully you guys, by the way, are doing well. Hopefully having the best day you could possibly be having. And hopefully with me today, you will firstly preview the Grand Prix that is going to be starting in, 3 hours from now. And hopefully we get a good one. Now, I don't have a graphic up to show you the exact sprint race results in terms of the timing gaps and stuff like that, but I'll just read out what the starting grid will be for the Italian Grand Prix, as you can see it on the left-hand side. So Max Verstappen will start on pole position. First time that Max Verstappen will be starting the Italian Grand Prix from pole. And also the first time that Red Bull have started the Italian Grand Prix on pole, or from pole, since 2013. And of course, that weekend, they won the Italian Grand Prix. Also in 2011, when they got pole, they won that Grand Prix as well. Of course, both times with Sebastian Vettel. Daniel Ricciardo in second. That's his best ever qualifying at this track. And also, it is his best qualifying result, technically, because of the sprint race shit. Best result of the season so far when it comes to his grid position. Lando Norris in third. Also for McLaren as a team, that is combined their best result from qualifying. Hamilton in fourth. A lot of work to do from there. Fifth and sixth for the two Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Very good to see Ferrari so high up the grid. Also great to see Antonio Giovinazzi in P7. And then Sergio Perez 8th, Stroll 9th, and Alonso 10th. So that is your top 10. And then you got Vettel 11th, Ocon 12th, Latifi in 13th, 14th Russell, Tsunoda 15th, Mazepin 16th, Kubica 17th, Schumacher 18th, and then Gasly 19th and Bottas 20th. The reason Gasly's 19th is because he retired from the sprint race because of a crash. And Valtteri Bottas, even though he won the sprint race, because he's took on his 4th power unit of the season, that of course incurs a grid penalty that drops him to the very back of the grid. So that's why Valtteri Bottas will not be starting this Grand Prix from pole position, and it will instead be the man to the left of that picture, Max Verstappen. But now let's get into the first top 2 teams, and we'll start with Mercedes, who, with Bottas, had a good day in the sprint race, but with Lewis Hamilton having his poor start and then not being able to make his way back through, mostly because the McLarens in a straight line are very, very quick. That's what I'm going to guess is what the reason was, even though I didn't watch the race. Lewis Hamilton has a lot of work to do in this Grand Prix. If he does not get ahead of at least one of the McLarens on the first lap, he will be quite a bit behind Verstappen by the time we get to the first and only round of pit stops in the Grand Prix today, because the McLarens are not going to be able to hang on to Max Verstappen because the Red Bull is just quicker. It's more consistent pace-wise, I think, over a Grand Prix distance, and I just think we'll have that, say, with Verstappen at the wheel especially, that extra 2 or 3 tenths a lap for Max Verstappen to pull away. So Hamilton has to absolutely go for it at the start, and really, in this Grand Prix, if he can get ahead of the 2 McLarens before the first pit stop, then he does still have a chance of winning the Grand Prix, because we do have to remember, Mercedes locked out the front row on Friday in qualifying, and then, you know, Bottas won the sprint race. So Mercedes do have the pace, and they probably do have the quickest car this weekend. So it's not, you know, game over for this team and this driver, especially Lewis Hamilton. He can absolutely win this Grand Prix today, but it is going to have to be one of those amazing drives again from him if he is going to do so. And there'll probably be some luck needed as well. Going to be probably similar to the one he had in 2018, where, you know, that was one of his greatest wins, I think, at that Grand Prix. And it's going to have to be, like I said, similar to that. And I think the McLarens, really, will decide who wins the Grand Prix. Like I said, if Hamilton does not get ahead of the 2 McLarens on the first lap, life will be made very difficult. And if he can't get ahead of the 2 McLarens by the first pit stop, then effectively Lewis Hamilton will have lost the Grand Prix. He can still definitely finish in second, but of course, if he loses more points to Max Verstappen, then it doesn't matter if he gets ahead of the 2 McLarens, because he does need to win, of course, to claw back the championship lead. Because now Max Verstappen leads by 5 points, because Verstappen gained 2 points in the sprint race. So Hamilton does need desperately to get after those 2 McLarens, to get past them, like I said, as soon as possible. And for Valtteri Bottas, he has actually come out and said that he thinks a podium is very possible, which I think he is very ambitious saying that. I don't think Mercedes are that quick. They're definitely, I think I've got the quickest car overall this weekend, but they are not that quick. I don't think they're going to be, with Bottas, you know, right up there 3rd place. I just don't see how he'll have enough pace in 53 laps. And by the way, the Italian Grand Prix is a very quick Grand Prix. It's not a long haul. So, yeah, I think Bottas is going to struggle to do that. And I think Bottas, his aim is probably going to have to be 5th and 6th, I think, for the Grand Prix today. I think he can get to that. Sergio Perez, though, I think might be a bit of a roadblock for him if he is trying to get a podium. But Mercedes, despite winning the sprint race and despite, like I said, having probably the quickest car this weekend, are in a very difficult position, and this is a big day for them. And also, it is a big day for this team and this driver, Max Verstappen, starting the Italian Grand Prix in pole position, like I've said previously in this stream. First time he has ever started on pole here at Monza, and given that Ricciardo is 2nd and Norris is 3rd, he has to make sure that in that first stint, he pushes as hard as possible if Hamilton is still behind the two McLarens to pull that gap. So even if Lewis Hamilton does get through the two McLarens, by say lap 10, 15, if Hamilton is really quick, that Verstappen has a good gap because he needs to take advantage of the fact that Lewis Hamilton is down in 4th place. And I think, really, unless Verstappen has a start, similar to Hamilton of yesterday, then I think Max Verstappen will win this Grand Prix quite comfortably. Like I said with Hamilton, gonna have to take a bit of luck, maybe relying on a Verstappen error or, like I just said, a poor start or something like that, and, him driving at his absolute best. Hamilton really needs a lot to go his way in this Grand Prix today if he's going to win. Max Verstappen really just needs to make sure he has consistent pace and doesn't make any mistakes, and he should win the Grand Prix. And Red Bull still looking pretty quick, even though they're not as quick this weekend as I thought they would be. They are still looking good, and their grid position, like I said, is fantastic. Sergio Perez in 8th. It's going to be interesting to see what Perez can do. I think he can definitely get past the two Ferraris and the Alfa Romeo of Giovinazzi. But can he beat the two McLarens? That is the big question for me coming into this Grand Prix. I do think Hamilton will beat the two McLarens because I think when it gets to the pit stops, I think Mercedes will find a way to get him ahead. And I think Mercedes, like I said, they have the quicker car, definitely in clear air, than McLaren. So I think Hamilton will get ahead of those two McLarens. So I think the real fight today that I'm looking at is possibly Verstappen Hamilton, but I think the chances of that, because of the McLaren splitting the two, are not that great. But for me, the real fight today, if Perez can get it through the two Ferraris and the Alfa Romeo, say, by lap 15, the real fight will be Ricardo Norris against Sergio Perez for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Like I said, I don't think Valtteri Bottas will get into really that fight because he'll lose so much time in traffic. He'll need probably a safety car, say midway through the Grand Prix to help him out there. But yeah, Perez, going to be interesting to see if he does have the pace. Normally on a race day at Monza, he's always tended to be very quick. He's had plenty of races here where he started low down and finished high up. The race in 2012 where he finished in 2nd, he started, I think, 14th or 15th on the grid or something like that. So Perez has the potential to be up, 3rd place, 4th place in this Grand Prix. But I think whether that happens or not is dependent on really how quick the Red Bull car is compared to the rest of the field, which I'm not sure how quick it will be yet. I don't think it'll be as quick as it was at Zandvoort. I think Zandvoort Red Bull were actually quite good in the race compared to what they normally are like, because normally in the race they do tend to drop off pace-wise compared to what they do in qualifying. So it'll be interesting to see how Red Bull are pace-wise, and I think if they are really quick like they were at Zandvoort, that will definitely benefit Sergio Perez and help him get after those two McLarens. But you have to say, without a doubt, advantage to Red Bull. And if Max Verstappen can win, even if Lewis Hamilton finishes in 2nd, Verstappen will extend his lead to double digits and at least 11 points if Verstappen does win and Hamilton was to finish in 2nd. And even if, like I said, Hamilton gets a fastest lap, it will be at least 11 points in Max's favour going to the Russian Grand Prix. Now let's get into the next two teams who are actually quite high up on the grid and semi in contention today. Well, definitely in contention for podium, I would say. Let's get into them now. So first off, McLaren, amazing pace this weekend. Not a massive surprise they've been so quick, but still, maybe a tad surprising they're starting this high up on the grid. I definitely thought we'd get a McLaren in the top 5, maybe say in 4th place, but I didn't think it would be, 2nd and 3rd starting the Italian Grand Prix. Great positions for them to be in. Their top speed looks great. Their pace has been brilliant. Even in the Friday qualifying, they probably could have got 3rd and 4th if they had just a bit extra speed in Friday qualifying. So I think McLaren are going to be hard for Hamilton in 4th place to pass. Very hard, because the McLaren's very quick in a straight line, and even in the corners, the McLaren car is pretty good. So I think McLaren definitely are in a good position, and I do think that McLaren will get a podium today. I don't know who it will be. I think it's very dependent on the start. If Ricciardo can keep ahead of Norris, then I think Ricciardo's chances are very, very good. But I do think McLaren will get a podium, because even if Perez passes the 2 Ferraris and the Alfa Romeo, I think McLaren have enough pace to hold off Sergio Perez. And McLaren, in comparison to Red Bull this weekend, have been pretty level at times. So, yeah, I think McLaren will be fine, and I think they will get a podium today. And if they were to finish, say, 3rd and 4th, that would be a great result for them. It really, really would, because that would be, 27 points heading their way in the Constructors. And Ferrari, I think, as we'll get into in a moment, I don't think they're going to have as good of a Grand Prix, simply because they don't have the power and the top-end speed that McLaren do. But I do think Ferrari will drop back from 5th and 6th on the grid there. And I think Perez will definitely get ahead of them. And we'll see if Bottas can make his way through and displace one of them. Also, remember last weekend, Ferrari's end of race pace wasn't that great. So, yeah, I think Ferrari might have a bit of a struggle today. But McLaren will definitely beat them. And I think McLaren may well take back 3rd in the Constructors by the end of today. And, of course, they'll be hoping so. But, yeah, great positions for them. Great to see them so high up on the grid. And not just high up on the grid, but they're genuinely quick. It's not because of a, wet, dry, mental sprint race with, cars falling all over the place or anything like that. I mean, yeah, the sprint race idea is a gimmick, but we saw in qualifying on Friday, they had the pace to be, maybe not 2nd, but obviously 3rd and 4th. That was pretty much where they were, fighting around. So they've got the pace, and I think that's the most pleasing thing to see, is that they are genuinely quick. And I think similar to the race we had at Austria, where Norris was genuinely quick there, and he was, brilliant in that race. I think McLaren, similar to that race, are heading for a brilliant result and will probably put in a very, very good and solid performance. Now, quickly, we'll go on to the Ferrari team. Good grid position, 5th and 6th, very good, of course, for the home crowd. A lot better than last year, where they were 13th and 17th, I think, last year. So, yeah, it's a great grid position, not denying that, but it's a bit false, I think. I think it is a bit false, because I think definitely Gasly and Bottas at the very back there, definitely in clear air are quicker than the 2 Ferraris, and I do think as well, over the course of the Grand Prix, Sergio Perez will have the pace to beat the 2 Ferraris. So, if you're a Ferrari fan, even though you're up in 5th and 6th, that's not, genuine pace. I think Ferrari will probably finish in the points with both cars, but I don't think they'll be finishing in 5th and 6th. I'd be very surprised if they were to get a car of theirs into the top 5. I'd be very surprised indeed. And I think Bottas is someone who will definitely beat one of the Ferrari cars today. Maybe not both of them. We'll have to see how Bottas progresses through the field. And for Perez, like I said, I think he'll definitely beat the 2 Ferraris, because the Red Bull car is quicker, not just through the corners, but of course down the straights, the Red Bull car looking better. So, yeah, a bit of a false grid position, not really representative of the pace they've had this weekend. They've looked like the, say, 4th best team, really, this weekend on a consistent basis. So, yeah, I don't think Ferrari are going to be finishing in such a good position. But if, if there's chaos up ahead, some retirements, we'll see. If they were to get a good result, then of course it'd be vital for them in the Constructors' Championship fight for 3rd with McLaren. Now, before I get into the rest of the teams, let me just get into a couple bits of stats. First off, we'll get into the top speed data. Now, these pieces of data are from qualifying on Friday, not the sprint race on Saturday. The reason I've not selected data from the sprint race on Saturday is because if we look at the data from the sprint race on Saturday when it comes to sector times and the top speeds and that, there's a lot of context that would need to be given, such as certain people having DRS at certain times. With sector times, it's dependent on who has clear air and who doesn't, and damage and who doesn't, and so on and so forth. It's very hard to say who is genuinely quick in a sprint race compared to single lap qualifying in on Friday. So that's why we're going to be looking at the stats, or not stats, the data from the normal qualifying session on Friday. By the way, just to let you guys know, the best bits of the qualifying watch-along stream from Friday, the link below is in the description. You can go and watch that right now. Pleased that it's done a bit better views-wise than it did in Holland. Seems quite a bit of you tuning in to the best bits of that stream and the best bits of the real qualifying session, I guess you could say. But yeah, if you want to see the best bits from that watch-along and a more exciting session, then make sure to click the link in the description for that video. I think it's in the description. I'm pretty sure it is. But yeah, we'll go into the data from the qualifying session on Friday. So you can see here, really, in most of the speed traps, or pretty much all of them, the Mercedes-powered cars, interestingly. Also, the two Red Bulls as well, and Gasly to a certain extent. So Honda power definitely still good, but Mercedes power looks to be the stronger out of, all of the engine suppliers or engine manufacturers at the moment. And that is a bit of a surprise, because I did think coming into this Grand Prix that the Honda-powered teams would have enough power to, be, say, maybe not top of all the speed traps in every single one, but I thought they would be a bit higher than they were. I mean, in the intermediate two, they've got, two Honda-powered teams, third and fourth, and then there's, I think in the start-finish line speed trap, the two Red Bulls are pretty good in that one, but overall, if you look at the top 10, it tends to be dominated by the Mercedes-powered team. So the Mercedes power unit in very good shape, and I think that is definitely a big reason why Mercedes were so quick in the qualifying session on Friday, because their power unit definitely a bit of a step up from what it was earlier in the season, and definitely a step up from what it was in Austria, the last circuit really comparable to this one. Of course, we raced at Austria, 2 months ago? So Mercedes have made good progress there. And also Ferrari have as well. You can see in the speed traps, Ferrari doing pretty well as well. And Giovinazzi pretty high in a lot of the speed traps. And also Sainz, I think in a couple of them, is looking pretty... Yeah, Ferrari-powered teams as well looking pretty good. But I'd say Mercedes probably just ahead at the moment in terms of raw power. And then Honda just below them. And then Ferrari definitely a lot closer to the Mercedes and Honda-powered cars when it comes to power. And then Alpine probably still in, say, well, definitely right around the Ferrari-powered teams for power. But I would still say they have the weakest of the power units. And that's why Alpine haven't been as quick this weekend as they were at Zandvoort, where they were the fourth quickest team and were genuinely quicker than McLaren in that weekend. So, yeah, that's why Alpine have been struggling. Now let's get on to the sector times from the qualifying session from Friday. And we can see that, yet again, Mercedes power definitely the, thing ruling the way, really, in all of the sectors. Sector 1, the top 4 are the 2 Mercedes and 2 Mercedes-powered McLarens. Sector 2, the top 2, of course, the 2 Mercedes. That is a bit more aerodynamic reliant, I would say. That's the second sector. Not massively. You still have a couple fast-ish corners and DRS straight, so it's not, loads and loads of corners or anything, but that's where the downforce is most important in that part of the track. And then sector 3, again, the top 3 dominated by Mercedes power, and really the top 5, because Norris is only 6 thousandths of a second slower in sector 3 compared to Verstappen. So if you look at Mercedes versus Red Bull, you can see that, or really where Mercedes were gaining the time on Red Bull, and it's simple. Straight line speed. That's where Mercedes were gaining the time, because if we compare, say, Bottas, who got pole, he was, of course, the quickest Mercedes, and Verstappen, who was the quickest Red Bull in third. Bottas, 0.2 of a second quicker in sector 1 alone. That is, I'd say, the most power dominant of the sectors. Even in sector 2, Bottas 0.1 quicker. Now, sector 2 is a chicane, and then I'd say 2 medium speed corners, and then a DRS straight. So I would say it is mostly about power, but not, nowhere near as much as sector 1. But Mercedes are, at least 0.1 of a second quicker through there. And then sector 3, which is quite, not really that hard, sector 3. I mean, you've got the Ascari chicane and that, but after that, it's a straight and then a quick corner and then another straight. And Mercedes are just about quicker in that sector as well compared to Red Bull, about 0.1 of a second or 0.5 compared Bottas to Verstappen. So in all sectors, Mercedes are quicker than Red Bull. So in clear air today, I would be very surprised if Red Bull, let's say Hamilton gets up to second at the end of lap 1, which I think for the race would be very good if that happened, because it would give us a very good fight between Verstappen and Hamilton for the race win. If Hamilton was able to do that, he should have the pace to definitely get within a second and get the DRS on Max Verstappen, because we can see the pace of the Mercedes is clearly better than that of the Red Bull. It's clear to see, especially in sector 1, 0.2 of a second quicker in that sector alone. So I think if Hamilton can get say within 7 or 8 tenths by the start of the DRS zone, going down the pit straight, then it might get interesting down to turn 1. Might get interesting, but Mercedes, I think the most important thing when it comes to their speed is they need to try and find as much clear air in the race as possible, because we can clearly see in clear air they have the best car. So they need to find as much clear air in the race. And if it means going longer into the race and stopping later for their final pit stop, then they'll have to do that, because, like I said, in clear air, their pace is easily good enough to win this Grand Prix, as Bottas won the sprint race yesterday. So they need to utilise that a lot in this Grand Prix. And Red Bull, I'd say, if you compare that to McLaren, it's not that great, I'd say, the pace Red Bull compared to McLaren. So McLaren, definitely quicker than Red Bull in the first sector by about 0.1 of a second at least. And then in the second sector, not really a surprise that Red Bull are quicker in the second sector, because again, a lot more aerodynamically reliant. So that's why Red Bull with Verstappen about 0.1 of a second quicker through the second sector. But in sector 3, McLaren, with Ricciardo, about 0.1 of a second quicker. So in the first and third sector, the real power dominant sectors, McLaren are quicker than Red Bull, really because of the Mercedes power unit. But Red Bull in the second sector have enough pace. So with Verstappen, in relation to the McLarens behind him, if he can break the 1 second barrier before lap 3, because of his extra speed in Sector 2, he should be able to just, slowly but surely eke his way ahead and, pull ahead even more. I do think Verstappen will have enough pace to win the Grand Prix today, like I said. But if Hamilton can get ahead of those two McLarens as quickly as possible, then the whole complexion of the race is turned upside down. And we're then going to get a proper fight between Hamilton and Verstappen for the win, which of course is what we want to see. And hopefully it's similar to the fight between Raikkonen and Hamilton from 2018, because that was a classic fight between those two. Hopefully we get something similar today. Also interesting to note that with Ferrari, so Ferrari, 10th and 13th in Sector 1, and then Sector 2, they are, you can see, quicker than McLaren. So aerodynamically speaking, they are still very good, Ferrari. As you can clearly see, they're pretty much level with Red Bull in that sector, only missing half a tenth to Max Verstappen. And then Sector 3, pretty good Sector 3. Still definitely not as quick as the McLarens, Mercedes, or Red Bulls in Sector 3. They're still missing, say, a couple tenths of a second. But compared to the rest, they're looking pretty good in Sector 3. But I think you can really see in Sector 1, I mean, they're losing 3/10 of a second alone to the Mercedes in Sector 1, which is a lot of time to be losing on a straight, a chicane, and then another straight. That's a lot of time to be losing in just, 27 seconds. So yeah, Ferrari definitely don't have the power, really, to compete with Red Bull, Mercedes, or McLaren. And I'd probably say Gasly in the Alpha Tauri as well. If he can find his way through, he definitely has the pace to get after the two Ferraris, because you can look in all the sectors, he's very good. In Sector 2 especially, what a brilliant job he did there. Pretty much a tenth of a second quicker than Max Verstappen, and a tenth and a half quicker than the Ferraris and the McLarens. So yeah, looking very good for Gasly pace-wise, but of course starting in a very bad position. But in clear air, I think the top 5 teams today should be Mercedes as the quickest, but again, in clear air. If Hamilton can get that clear air from the McLarens as quickly as possible, then Mercedes are in a great position. And then I'd say, hard to say between Red Bull and McLaren. I think, honestly, overall, McLaren have the quicker car this weekend. But I think it's still close between them and Red Bull. So I'd probably say in clear air, McLaren second, Red Bull third, and then Ferrari. Hard to say with Ferrari. Probably AlphaTauri fourth with Gasly, and then Ferrari in fifth. It's very close, I think, between Ferrari and AlphaTauri, to be honest. I think Gasly is definitely getting a bit more out of that car than what most could. But yeah, I think Mercedes and McLaren, looking at this, definitely the two quickest teams. And I think they will be very good in the race today. And they do, both those teams tend to be pretty good in a race situation when it comes to pure speed. So I think they'll be the two quickest. But why? The reason why I'm saying Max Verstappen will win is because he has more pace than the two McLarens in Sector 2. The Red Bull is better in the corners, and I think that will help Max Verstappen if he does maintain the lead at the end of the first lap. I think if he can break that 1 second barrier by lap 3, then he will be able, slowly but surely, to either maintain it at a certain gap that's comfortable for him, say within 1 to 2 seconds, or he will just slowly but surely, if the Red Bull, and if he is kind to his tyres, pull away. But I do think overall, in clean air, McLaren have a quicker car than Red Bull in, these conditions we've seen this weekend. And I will say, if McLaren do get into the lead on the first lap, I don't think they're going to get overtaken, because they're very quick down the straights, and like I've said, we can see their pace is genuinely very, very good. Only thing they'll have to watch out for is, if they do get into the lead at the end of the first lap, is they might be under a bit of pressure in the middle sector, because they're definitely losing basically a quarter of a second in that sector to Mercedes, for example. That's going to be the sector where McLaren will be definitely at their weakest. But if they do get into the lead, McLaren, they're going to be definitely contenders, and they won't just be easily disposed of within 5 or 10 laps. So McLaren heading, I think, for a good result in this Grand Prix. Now, before I go on to the rest of the teams, just want to remind you guys, if any of you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. I will be live later in about 2 hours from now for the race watch-along for the 2021 Italian Grand Prix at 1:30 p.m. UK time, like I said, in 2 hours from now. And then, once that race watch-along finishes, probably sometime between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. UK time, I will be uploading the race review. It might be later, though, if there's any incidents that I need to analyse. And if so, then, like I said, it will probably come out later than, say, 6 p.m. But if there isn't, then it will come out between 5 and 6 p.m. UK time. So don't forget, for all that content today, to subscribe and, most importantly, hit the notifications bell so you are notified as to when all of those things go live or, are released onto the channel. And as well, don't forget to smash a like button and share this video and channel everywhere you can. Really does help out the growth here. Now, let's get on to the rest of the teams quickly. Aston Martin, 9th and 11th on the grid. They've looked decent this weekend. Maybe not as good as I thought they would, to be honest. I thought they were probably going to do a bit better. Their qualifying pace wasn't really that good compared to, like I said, what I thought they would be capable of. I thought they would probably be able to get one car, say definitely 8th or 9th, but they couldn't really do that on Friday, and then I think benefited really in the sprint from the Gasly crash and also a bit of chaos at the start, really, to have the good grid positions they do, 9th and 11th. And I think Aston Martin will score points with one of their cars. They really should score points with both of their cars because they have the power. We've seen the Mercedes-powered teams are very good this weekend and at the moment, really. So they should be very good, and they should get both drivers in. Both drivers have been, very good at this circuit before and have driven, I think, okay or decent this weekend. They've not been especially great, but they should get both cars into the points, and I think they will. Especially watch out for Lance Stroll. Of course, we know he's great at the starts, but also his pace around this track is pretty good. He's not ever, I believe, missed out on a points finish here at the Italian Grand Prix since he started racing here in Formula 1 in 2017. For AlphaTauri, I feel sorry for AlphaTauri, to be honest, because without the sprint race idea, I mean, maybe if it was a Grand Prix, it would have happened anyway. But Gasly obviously does not deserve to be starting 19th on the grid. He should be up in, 6th place where he qualified on Friday. He really is in that 5th, 6th place area. He's been consistently pace-wise up there. We just saw on the sector time data that Gasly was, just as quick as the Ferraris and definitely quicker and not too far behind the McLarens even on pace. And of course, he won the Grand Prix last year and was fantastic and has been fantastic in the last 2 or 3 weekends, really. But yeah, such a shame for Gasly because his pace is really good. I think he will probably come through to score a point, but I don't think it will be anywhere near enough to satisfy him and the AlphaTauri team. But as long as they beat Alpine and Alpine don't score any points, which is very possible, then that would be good enough. Because remember, they're only 6 points behind Alpine in the battle for 5th in the Constructors. So if Gasly can finish, say, 9th or 10th and Alpine don't score anything, then even though it could have been better this weekend, at least they have gained on their main rival. Because if AlphaTauri finish in 5th in the Constructors, I don't think you guys have any idea how big that would be for them going forward and would really help fund, I think, Also, that extra money they would get, future team success. Of course, Gasly and Tsunoda confirmed AlphaTauri for 2022. Also, with Tsunoda, I'm hoping he can make some progress today because that AlphaTauri car is better than where he is on the grid, 15th. He really should be definitely beating the two Williamses and should be in close contention with the Aston Martins and Alpines as well. Talking about Alpine, I just don't think they have the pace to get in the points today. I think really they benefited quite a lot from a couple bits of chaos yesterday to have a car starting in the top 10. We saw it in Friday qualifying. They were 13th and 14th. They're just not that quick. Not surprised. Like I said, I think Renault have the weakest power unit out of the four manufacturers. So not surprised. And I think Alpine will struggle a lot to finish in the top 10. Gasly and Bottas, I think, definitely will have the pace to come through and beat them. And Sebastian Vettel as well. And maybe even Tsunoda if he does perform a bit better and has better pace. So I'd be very surprised if Alpine finish in the top 10. Alonso, though, I have to say, has driven pretty well this weekend, but the Alpine car just simply isn't good enough for him to finish in the points. Alfa Romeo next up, and Antonio Giovinazzi yet again starting a Grand Prix in 7th place. Of course, he started in P7 at the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort a week ago. The race went terribly due to I think an emergency pit stop. I can't actually remember what the reason was for that pit stop. But yeah, it didn't go well, even though I think he had the pace probably to finish. He was going to get a point probably in 9th or 10th place. And he deserved really to be finishing around that part of the grid because his pace was in the race after his start that wasn't really that great. I think he lost, 2 positions at the start of the Grand Prix last weekend. His pace was still pretty good. So it is genuine pace, and I would love to see Antonio Giovinazzi finish in the top 10 because I think the guy definitely deserves to stay in Formula 1. He's out-qualified Kimi Räikkönen consistently over the last 2 years, and I think if you give this guy a better car, and hopefully if he is teammate to Valtteri Bottas next year, of course, Bottas confirmed at Alfa Romeo for next year. Russell now going to Mercedes from Williams, and Albon going to Williams for next year as well. If Alfa Romeo do have a better car and a car that can consistently be in a position where kind of Alpine are on the grid on a consistent basis, then I think Antonio Giovinazzi will surprise people by how good he is. Because, like I've said, his qualifying efforts in the last 2 years, he took a few races in 2019, his real, debut season. I'm not going to count 2017 because he was, he was an awful car and he was nowhere near ready, I think, to be in Formula 1 at that point. But his first real season, 2019, took a bit of time to get going, but once he did, around, I think it was just before the summer break, he started to improve. And then after the summer break in 2019, he really started to kick on, even led a Grand Prix for a few laps, I think in Singapore. Since then, he's been good. And like I said, if you give this guy a car as good as the Alpine or the Aston Martin, this guy will surprise people. And I really hope today he finishes in the points and gets some good points and proves that he is absolutely good enough to be in Formula 1 going forward. And finally for Williams, 13th and 14th is a good grid position, but their pace in qualifying on Friday, despite having very good top-end speed, as we saw, Latifi was top of, I think, 2 of the speed traps in Friday qualifying. Williams just don't have the grip, I don't think, to really hold on to 13th and 14th in terms of positions. Gasly and Bottas definitely will finish ahead of them. Tsunoda, we'll have to see. Depends on if Tsunoda is at the races today, but I don't think Williams, honestly, have enough pace to really compete for a points finish. But if they do get one, of course, that would be great, and it would be their 3rd points finish out of the last 4 races, which, of course, would be immense progress, considering 1 year ago, at this exact Grand Prix, the Williams family left the team, and look how much improved they've been since. And, like we were saying, when the Williams family, if they were gone, things would be better, because even though the Williams family were definitely a massive reason for their success, they were an even bigger reason for their downfall. And it's great to see Williams definitely improving and getting back more so to the midfield where they were, say, in 2017 or 2016 as well. So yeah, Williams 13th to 14th, but I don't think they'll get really any better than that. But guys, that is it for the race preview for the 2021 Italian Grand Prix. Thank you guys for coming along, and like I said, come to this channel in an hour and 45 minutes from now for the race watch along for the 2021 Italian Grand Prix, to see and also listen to what goes down in this very important race for the World Championship, of course, between Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. Again, thank you guys for coming along, but also don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications bell for that stream coming up later, and also the race review coming up, of course, after the race finishes and after my stream finishes. And as well, smash the like button, share this video and channel everywhere you can, and don't forget to tune in to the best bits of my qualifying watch along from Friday. The link below is in the description for the best bits of that stream, of the real qualifying session, I guess you could say. But also, don't forget to join my Discord server, link below in the description. Great place for notifications of my videos and streams, and also very active server with 500 people or so. So it'd be great to have you in our growing community. But guys, until my race watch along in an hour and 45 minutes at 1:30 PM UK time. Until then, guys, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.